Yeah.
I'm coming to tell you. Okay.
I know. Sorry, Maria. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's really, no, she's just that's all she wanted to do is get my attention, tell me to start recording, because a lot of people like to watch the show recorded. I send this out on my email list. If people miss the show live and they want to watch it, I make sure to send out a link to the recording, and I can't do that if I haven't actually started recording. So to those of you who are watching this recording, I'm so sorry you just missed my whole introduction, so I apologize for that. But if you're on my email list, you probably already know a little bit about who I am and what I do, so I won't bore everyone with that again. Okay, so what I was talking about before is disorganization and how this is something that everybody deals with. There are certain people who are highly organized maybe in most areas of their life, but there's like one or two key areas that they feel like they can't quite get under control. Other people at the other far end of the spectrum are highly disorganized in most areas of their lives, and there's very few places where they feel in control and feel organized. So everybody deals with this at some level. So I want to help you feel a little bit more relaxed and a little bit less self-condemning if you have a problem with disorganization, because this is something everybody has a problem with at some level, some higher level than others, and that's certainly the truth. And you have the extreme cases I'm sure you've seen on television about the hoarding, people who hoard, and that actually is a psychological disorder. That's a problem. That's not just normal standard disorganization. That really has crossed a line into some pathological type behavior, but it starts with just general disorganization. So, okay. Now, like there's a lot of areas in my life that I'm highly organized in, and there's a lot of areas in my life that I am very disorganized in. So, like I'm really great. I have a very well organized closet, and my cabinets are pretty well organized. Although that was not always the case, and I'll tell you about that in a second. But if you were to look at my desktop, it's very disorganized. I mean, in a very classic sense, I kind of have piles of stuff, and it's just not so great. So not something that I would even want to show, because as much as I talk this year, the theme is about not being embarrassed, not being self-conscious. And actually, it wouldn't even be because of embarrassment. It's really because I am worried that if I dislodge my camera to show everybody what my desktop looks like, I somehow won't be able to get it back where it needs to be to continue the show. So there's more. That's actually the main reason that I'm hesitating showing everybody my desktop. It's not out of self-consciousness, because I want you to know, I'm certainly not perfect. I struggle with organization in certain areas, and other areas I have conquered it. And so what I want to tell you too is that you can do this. That organization is not an all or nothing thing. It really is a journey. What I found is that I'm far more organized now than I was maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And probably 10 years from now, I'll be more organized than I am now. Because I've had to chip away at things and just kind of work on one area at a time. I couldn't, organize my entire life all at once. It's not an all or nothing thing. And I don't want you to feel like you have to do that, because you're setting yourself up to fail. Okay. So really try to understand that getting to be more organized truly is a journey. You're going to try certain things, and sometimes they're going to work, and sometimes certain things are just not going to work. And then you're just going to fix what didn't work the next time that you try. So you just kind of keep moving forward. It's really not an all or nothing thing. I want you to try as much as possible to not feel like you have to completely, conquer everything all at once. And then if you can't do that perfectly, then you're a failure, or you just can't be organized. That's not the case at all. I mean, so just as an example, I was trying to think about this when I was thinking about the content for today's show, when it was that I got more organized with my closets and my cabinets, because I remember very specifically where I was living. I was living in Maryland at the time. I remember which house. And I remember that my kitchen cabinets in particular were just out of control, and they always had been since I had been married. They just never felt like they were in control. And I couldn't figure out, here's what the problem was. I did not know how to organize. I didn't know how to do it. And I think I was watching a show. It may have even been the Oprah show, but I don't quote me on that. I don't remember. I was watching something on television where there was an organizing expert talking, and she said something to me that I had never heard before. She said, "Oh, you just group like things together. So group things that are in the same category, you just group them together in one spot, and then you group other things that are of another like category together in another spot." So to some of you, I'm saying that, and that sounds like, well, duh, that's the most obvious thing in the world. But for me, it was not. I actually had never heard that before. I did not know that intuitively either. That was a revelation. And I remember whatever I was watching on TV, I got so excited because I thought, oh my gosh, how simple is that? But once I understood that that was something I didn't even know before, I went right into my kitchen and I reorganized. Well, I hadn't even organized, I didn't reorganize anything. I redid my kitchen cabinets. And ever since then, that was in probably my early 30s that I did that. And ever since then, the kitchen cabinets have been, for the most part, organized. I may have a lot of stuff in there, but it's organized stuff. So for instance, I did not know that you should keep like all the breakfast stuff together. All the cereal stays together along with the oatmeal and cream of wheat, and all the canned goods, like put the beans all together and the tomato cans, tomato soup and tomato paste and all that sort of stuff together. I'm sure that sounds really basic to many of you who are watching and listening, but for me it wasn't. And so I heard that, and that was life-changing. And ever since then, that's worked. And when you have a family and you have a system like that, you can teach them. It's pretty easy. Oh, the breakfast stuff goes here. So when you take out the box of cereal, you replace it right there. And that's what you do. I did not know that before. But then what I did was I injected that same technique into my closet. So I'm actually my cousin-in-law, not really my sister-in-law, although she's more like a sister-in-law to me. She actually gave me another idea for my closet, because most people tend to, do the same thing with their closet. They'll put all their pants together, their shirts together, et cetera, et cetera. And what she told me to do actually, and I think this is probably just a matter of preference, but she told me to group my closet according to color. So to keep all the black stuff here, all the brown stuff here, all the blue stuff there, and whatever. And she told me this years ago, and I did that, and I've actually found that works really well for me to know all the colors, not necessarily just my pants are over here. Again, I did not know to do these things. I really did not know how to organize at the most basic level. But once I learned that, once I understood, gosh, there's this whole technique or this underlying mechanism to being organized, that really changed my life. But other areas I was very organized in. So I just tell that story to you to let you know that there's no shame in being disorganized. Don't be self-conscious about it. You have to acknowledge, hey, I just don't know how to do this. And then you can be on the road to getting it under control. As long as you resist that because you might feel embarrassed by admitting it, even to just yourself, you're not going to get any better. So along with the theme, for this year, which is to we're all going to commit to each other to not be embarrassed, not be self-conscious, not be self-condemning anymore, because those things are getting in the way of you living your best and highest life. We're not gonna worry about those feelings anymore. So let's put it all out there and just admit the areas that we know we're struggling in, so that we can then move forward. As long as you allow embarrassment or shame or something like that to be in between you and your goal, you're never going to get to your goal. So we're going to remove all that emotional crap. Okay, so as you know, with my shows, I always make notes for myself because I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. I don't forget something really important to tell you all. So I apologize if you see me at times kind of glancing down. First of all, I do want to make sure that I'm keeping an eye on the comments, the questions coming in. Hi, Leah, so good to see you. Yes, it is an individual preference for sure. And what I consider to be organized, someone else might not consider to be organized at all. So, you just gotta do what you can do. But definitely is an individual thing. And like I said, if I showed you my desktop right now, which it looks not terrible, but it looks cluttered, because it is cluttered. It doesn't just look cluttered. It actually is cluttered. I happen to know where everything is. So in my mind, it still feels organized because I know how to find stuff. But someone coming in here would look at it like, oh, what's going on in your desktop? What exploded? I actually know where everything is. So I feel like it's organized, even though it's probably not as good as it could be. So that's the area that I struggle with. Okay. Now, so what we're going to do is I have 4 steps for you to start to get more organized in your life. And remember, these are more psychological techniques for you to use. These are not necessarily specific strategies like go to your closet and empty everything out and divide into 3 piles. And although that's what they tell you to do, take an area that you want to organized and you take everything out of that area, and then you either throw something away, you donate it, you give it away, or you keep it for yourself and then, find a place for it to be eventually. That's a kind of a general strategy that a lot of organizing experts use. I'm more interested in the psychological underpinnings of what prevents us from staying organized once we go to all that hassle and trouble and sometimes money. People pay money for organizing experts to come into their house to organize an area, and then they don't stick with the system. And the reason they don't stick with the system is because of these psychological underpinnings. That's what I'm going to talk to you today about. All right. Before we start with these first steps, please know if you, my wonderful assistant, Maria Extraordinaire, she has there in the chat box a link to a download, a handout, just a small one-page PDF that you can print out and take notes on about today's show. So please go there and do that if you want, or just use your own piece of paper, whatever. It's just, as long as you take notes so that you can feel like you're moving forward, that's the most important thing. Okay, if you have questions, if you have comments, if there's something that you want me to talk more about, please mention it in the chat bar there. Don't hesitate also to join the conversation. I'd love to talk to you directly face to face. So if our technology allows, make sure that you ask to join me in the seat on Blab. I'd love to talk to you in person. Okay, so the first thing that you want to do, this is not the first step. This is even before the first step. I want you to think about an area in your life that you feel disorganized. Okay, it's, whether other people would think that you're disorganized or not is not important. What's important is that you perceive that you're disorganized or having a challenge in a particular area. So I want you to figure out what that specific area is, or if there's multiple areas, maybe it's just a global issue of being disorganized. And what I want you to do is I want you to identify the problems, the specific problems that being disorganized causes you. Okay, what are the consequences in your life because you're disorganized? Okay, now what pain does it cause you? It may sound like, what's the point of doing that? Duh, I don't like being disorganized because I feel out of control. But it's really important for you to pinpoint the fact and identify the fact that it's probably causing something significant in your life. It's a problem that it's initiating. So for some people, it might be, I had a client one time, she really struggled with disorganization, and one of her big pain points was that she would lose track of papers coming in, like her kids would come in from school in particular. This is the thing that sticks out to me about this particular client. Her kids would come home from school and they'd have papers that she needed to sign, the field trip permission slips. At the beginning of the year, there's always so many papers to sign and everything. And she just was so disorganized that she would lose track of where those papers are, when they were due, how much she needed to fill out versus her child, because some of them, her one child was older and could actually do some of the work himself. She just lost track of all of that. And as a result, nothing got back to the school. And then she'd get phone calls for several months. We don't have this, we don't have that. And then she would feel embarrassed. And then remember, we've talked about this several times. When you feel embarrassed or ashamed about something, you don't attack it. You don't jump in and say, hey, I'm going to solve this problem. We retreat from things that make us feel ashamed or embarrassed. So it just made the problem even worse in her mind. So with her in particular, deadlines were a big issue. She was missing deadlines. Maybe that's your problem. Other people, and this might sound silly, but it was the case for me before I got my closet under control in particular, and even my kitchen cabinets. Being disorganized costs you money. So have you ever thought to yourself, oh, I need a new pair of black pants. I just don't have, I need a pair of black pants for this summer. I just don't have any light black pants. And so you go to the store and you buy a pair of black pants for the summer, and you come home, and a couple months later, when you do finally go through your closet, you realize, oh, you actually had a pair of summer weight black pants. They were just in the back of your closet on the floor in a pile that you couldn't see because there was so much clutter and so much stuff in your closet, and the way you had it organized, you just couldn't even see it. So when we're disorganized and when we have a lot of clutter, you actually can't see what you have. When you can't see what you have and you think you need something, you go out and buy it. Well, you maybe didn't have to go out and buy it. You might have already had it. It's the same with food. For me in my kitchen cabinet, before I learned how to organize it and get it under control, I used to think, oh, I don't have enough tomato sauce. Tomato sauce is my big thing. Oh, I don't have enough tomato sauce. So I'd go out and I'd buy more tomato sauce. And then every once in a while, when I go through and clean the kitchen cabinets out, I'd find many cans of tomato sauce way in the back of the cabinet. It was there. I just could never see it because it wasn't organized. So being organized can cost you money. So the point here is that I want you to sit and really think about the cost of being disorganized. What is it? What is the pain point here? What is it costing you? Is it costing you missed deadlines? Or is it costing you actual money? Is it costing you simple just mental health energy because you look at something that feels cluttered or feels out of control and you just don't know what to do about it, and so you just feel lousy. So what's going on here? Oh, late fees on bills. Oh, that's a huge one. You know, when you have a mail issue, a problem with mail coming in, and a lot of people struggle with that. Actually, that's an area that I'm not great with either. You don't have any any way to organize your bills coming in, and so you pay them late, you know, and you're hit with late fees. So, and being disorganized is not just something that feels uncomfortable. It has this inner experience that just, oh, you just don't like it. It's a lot more than that. It's hitting you in your pocketbook. Thank you, Leah, for that. That's great. Yeah. So I want you to really get in touch with that. It's important to understand the pain that it's causing, because the flip side could also happen. It could be that you're disorganized in a particular place in your household, your life, your office, but it's actually not a problem. It's not really causing a problem. So then, you know, don't worry about it. I mean, if you want to deal with it because it makes you feel better, then that's worthwhile. But, you know, if it's not causing a problem, then it's not a problem maybe. So don't worry about it, okay? Now, if someone else in your life is complaining to you about that area being disorganized, that's kind of something that you personally are going to have to deal with to see if whether that's something that you want to address or not. So anyway, okay. So try to get really clear on the pain point. What is the problem that disorganization is causing for you in your life? Now, don't gloss over that step. It's an important kind of pre-work that you need to do before you do these next 4 steps that I'm going to talk about. So make sure you do that. All right. Here now are the 4 steps. Remember, these are psychological techniques. These aren't about kind of standard organizing techniques. Hi there, good to see you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate, obviously, to type them in the chat box. And I'm going to start here with the 4 steps. Now, let me put my notes here so I don't miss anything. Okay. The first is, and this might sound silly, but you have to be very clear and acknowledge to yourself or to somebody else, if it helps, talk about it with somebody else, what your current system is in a particular area. And I do encourage you to pick one area. So it could be your desktop, it could be your filing cabinet, it could be your kitchen cabinets. For me, that's what mine was, or it could be your closet, whatever. But pick one area, and I want you to really look at it and think about, what is my current system that I have here? And some of you might think, well, I actually don't have a system. That's the problem. But what I want you to understand, though, is that you do have a system. Now, the system might be something as general as, well, I come back from the grocery store and I just throw everything from the bags wherever they fit in my kitchen cabinets. Or I come back from the store from a shopping trip and I just put all the clothes on hangers and I just put them anywhere that I can jam them in where they fit. That's your system. It might not be the system that you want to have, and it might be a system that is maintaining disorganization, but it still is the system that you're using. And it sounds stupid, but you'll understand why in a second. I want you to understand that is the system that you live by. You actually tell yourself a little rule in your head when you come home from the grocery store, for instance. You say to yourself, okay, I'm coming home from the grocery store. I take all the stuff out of the bags and I just fit them in wherever they fit in the cabinets. That's the rule. That's what you tell yourself automatically, probably subconsciously, and so that's just what you do. Same with filing cabinets or not filing things, as the case may be. When papers start to pile up or the mail comes in, your system might be, I go get the mail and I notice that there are bills in the mail and I don't want to deal with the bills because they make me feel bad. So I just put them in a pile on the kitchen counter or on my desk or whatever, because I just don't want to deal with it right now because it makes you feel bad. Now, that might be your system. It doesn't sound like a system because it sounds, you know, it's not something you like to admit, but that is your system. So along with the theme for the whole year that we're not going to be ashamed or embarrassed anymore, I want you to acknowledge, I want you to divorce the emotions from this situation and just acknowledge what it is that you do right now with this area that is disorganized and that you want to improve. Okay, just be very blunt with yourself or with me. If you want to type it in here to me, this would be a great opportunity for you to disclose, just kind of let it out. Here's the way I used to, or I do now with my filing cabinets or with my mail coming in. Here's what I do now. I mean, I told you what I used to do with my groceries. I would just come in and throw them in the cabinet wherever they fit. And that's not a great way to keep yourself organized. So feel free to let me know too. But be very, very clear on what it is that you currently do with no shame, no condemnation, no self-consciousness. Just say to yourself, okay, this is what I do. You may not like the fact that you do it, but that's what you do. That's your system. Yeah, well, I told you that for a reason, because that's kind of my system for papers, and I have to really work on not doing that anymore. So yeah, but I mean, that's a lot of people do that. And again, we're allowing feelings of shame, self-loathing, self-condemnation, embarrassment, or not feeling good about what the bill might look like and not wanting to deal with the money. We let those feelings get in the way of paying bills and staying organized. And so again, feelings just really screw things up when it comes right down to it. Okay, so the first step, acknowledge whatever your current system is. The second step that you want to do is figure out exactly why that system doesn't work. Now, again, that might sound silly, but there might be an aspect of that system that actually does work for you. And that, so for instance, we have a junk drawer that if you would look at it, you open it up and you think, my gosh, this is a disaster in here. But there are parts of that system, even though it's a disorganized system, there are parts of it that are actually very organized and very predictable. Even though the whole drawer is a classic junk drawer, we keep our batteries in the very same place in that drawer all the time, and we keep our pencils and pens in the very same place in that drawer as we keep the scissors and the tape. Like certain things actually have their specific home and place in that junk drawer, even though the rest of there's a whole bunch of other stuff there too. So your current system, while might actually still have elements that are working for you. So after you figure out what your system is, figure out what part of that isn't working. So with the groceries, for instance, what wasn't working is that I was putting the things back in a very haphazard way, so I could not find them. You can't memorize where I keep the box of cereal all the time. I just can't memorize that. I have to look for it when I want to go find it. And if it's on its side or something, or if it falls, I don't know that it's there. Anyway, so it's possible there are elements that are working in your system, and you don't always know that until you sit down and analyze what isn't working in your system. Okay, so the first step is figure out what your system is. The second step is to determine what specifically about it isn't working. What problems is it causing for you? And then, how does it make you feel? So part of this with figuring out what about it is working and versus not working is it usually makes us feel a certain way. We feel out of control with it, or we feel like our money is controlling us, or somehow our household is controlling us, or we feel out of control in a particular way. And that feels lousy. And then we end up feeling ashamed and embarrassed about it. So we don't talk about it, and we certainly don't do anything to fix the problem because we feel ashamed about it. So we want to stay away from it. That's not good. So what I want you to do instead, as part of the second step, is I want you to figure out how you do want to feel instead of how you currently feel. And that might sound stupid, but oftentimes people embark on some sort of self-improvement process, and they miss this step of defining how it is that I want to feel about what your closet looks like, or what your filing cabinet looks like, or what your desktop, what you want it to look like. How do you want to feel when you're looking at it? If right now you look at it and you just feel a sense of overwhelm because there's so much stuff, do you want to look at it and feel like, oh, I am in control of everything that's going on in my business and my life, and that's reflected in a nice, clean, clutter-free desktop? Identify how you do want to feel. You'd be shocked at how often people start on a self-improvement process. It can even be losing weight, starting an exercise program, whatever, and they actually start to feel better about it, but they don't recognize that they're feeling better. What they do recognize is that they're feeling different. And sometimes, even though they're feeling better and they're feeling more in control in a particular area, because that feeling is unexpected and very different, it feels scary and it feels uncomfortable. They weren't expecting to feel in control, and because they do, they get nervous about it sometimes, and they actually retreat back to how they used to be, because feeling out of control at least feels comfortable to them. And that may sound mind-blowing, kind of weird, but we all do that. Sometimes oftentimes, most times, people prioritize feeling comfortable over everything else. So if you've lost 20 pounds and you feel great, sometimes that feeling of being strong and powerful and in control and thin feels really good, but also doesn't feel like you anymore. And so you end up putting the weight back on. It creeps back up because you feel more comfortable in that skin that's heavier. And that sounds strange, but people do this a lot of times. This actually explains in some cases why people stay in relationships, for instance, that really aren't good for them, because they feel comfortable understanding and being able to predict how the other person is going to behave, even if it makes them feel lousy. So I know it sounds bizarre, but it really is true. The crazy you know, exactly. That's what Leah it's better the crazy that you know. And it sounds weird, but one of the ways that you can help achieve a place where you feel more in control and feel good about it is to anticipate how you're going to feel and how you want to feel. Define it, okay? And don't define it in terms of what you don't want anymore. So what you want to avoid is saying to yourself, well, I don't want to feel out of control anymore. I don't want to feel disorganized anymore. I don't want to feel embarrassed anymore. What you want to do is you want to state it in a positive way. So you want to say, I want to feel in control, and I want to know that I have all the parts of my business and my life functioning well, or in a timely fashion. And I want to feel on top of my bills. I want to feel organized. Okay. So I identify and define how it is that you do want to feel. All right. And I know it's strange, but it happens all the time. And actually this phenomena explains why it's so hard to change anything. What if the new feeling is so different that you can't anticipate it? Then you need to, that's a great question, because sometimes people, changing can bring with it experiences that you didn't even know were going to happen that can be really positive. So you have to be honest with yourself when you feel like you're starting to slip back and it starts to feel uncomfortable. So you have to say to yourself, all right, you have to tolerate that discomfort and reinterpret in your mind what it means to feel uncomfortable. So feeling uncomfortable is a good thing. Usually when we feel uncomfortable, that's a trigger for us. That's like a sign or a signal that something's wrong, because we don't like to feel uncomfortable. But instead, when you start to feel uncomfortable or different, learn to attach a different meaning to that feeling, a meaning of, oh, this is a good feeling. It means I'm growing and it means I'm getting better. And that's a big mindset shift for most people. You have to force yourself to think that for a while before you really, really embrace it and can have that be your normal way of perceiving and kind of interacting in the world. But that's a great question, Leah, because that's a huge problem. I mean, what do you do if all of a sudden you're feeling great, but it's so foreign to you, you don't know how to feel great? Because it changes how you look at the world too. When how you're feeling changes how you look at the world and how other people look at you. It's actually, this is a topic for another show, actually a whole series of shows about this, because this is a big deal. This is one of the main reasons why people don't change at all, or once they've changed, why they find it difficult to maintain the change, okay? Because being different in a particular way, even if it's better, is still different, and people don't like to feel different for the most part. Okay, so that's the second step. So you're going to acknowledge and clearly define what your current system is, then you want to define what's wrong with the system and what's right with your current system, because it's very likely that there are parts of it that are working, just like me and the batteries and the scissors and my junk drawer, and also how you do want to feel, okay? So, how does it make you feel now, but how do you want to feel, and state that positively, right? So you can anticipate it. And the third thing is when people choose to be organized in a particular area, what they're really doing is they're committing to a system. It's a system, a series of new behaviors that they're going to do. They're not necessarily committed to, the specific organizing bins that you've just bought, or the desktop organizing tchotchkes that you've just purchased. That's not what you're committing to. You're not committing to the products that you've purchased to keep you organized. You are committing to the system of using those products. So what does that mean? Now, I want you to decide on a system that you're willing to commit to. That's really important. Make sure it's something you're willing to do. There's a ton of ways to keep your desktop and your filing cabinets organized. There's a lot of different strategies that you can use. Some of them, I look at them, I think, there's no way I would do that. I would love to force myself to do that, but I just know myself. I know I'm not going to do those things. So guess what? I don't even try that. But I have other systems where I think, okay, that seems reasonable enough given my lifestyle and the way I tend to just kind of handle things. I think I could probably do that. So make sure you find a system or think about a system or develop a system that you're pretty willing to actually implement, okay? Not everyone is willing to implement every system. That's another reason that sometimes it's a really great organizing expert who's helping you will help you develop a system that that person is going to say that you're going to work with. You don't want to have an expert come in and say, okay, here's how you're going to do everything from now on, because that's their system. And that might not work for you because it might not just mesh with the sort of the way that you think about things, the way you process things, how much time you need to decide. For instance, if it's a paper management system, you might need to really look at something and think about it for a long time before you decide what to do with it. Other people are quick with deciding things like that. They can see something, a piece of paper, and immediately know what to do with it. I'm actually not like that. So I need to have more time to process what should I do about this particular issue, blah, blah, blah. Not everyone's like that. So you can't have someone come in and say, okay, here's your new system. That may work for you, or you know what, it just may be something that you just are not going to keep up with for whatever reason. You just don't want to. It doesn't work well for you. So this third step is really important and probably the most time-consuming step that you're going to take, which is to figure out what system is reasonable that I'm going to work with. Now, here's the thing that you have to get used to. People don't like to hear. Sometimes that system might mean there's still an element of clutter or disorganization in the system still, okay? So for me, that's my junk drawer. I'm actually not motivated to change that too much because so much about it, like 90% of the time, it works really well for us. Even though if you open it up, it looks like it's a mess, everyone in the family knows exactly where to go to get something and then where to put it back. And I don't want to mess with that. So, it's possible that a new system that you decide and, it might still have an element about it that, in theory is still disorganized, and that's fine, okay? Because what's most important is that you're getting better, that you are getting more organized, that not that you're ultra organized and everything in your life has a place and it's always in that place where it's supposed to be. I don't know many people who actually live like that or live happily like that. So just, kind of pick a system that's going to work for you. It doesn't need to be perfect, and it doesn't need to make sure that everything is absolutely perfect, okay? So that's not what this is about, right? Okay, so this third step, that does take some time. You need to figure that out, and that can take some time. Now, the fourth step, and this is actually the easiest thing to do, is once you figure out what this system is, I want you to break the system down into a series of rules. So this actually shouldn't be too hard. So I mentioned before, a couple minutes ago, that we all operate by little rules that we tell ourselves, and they're unconscious. We do it, it's other people call it habit, okay? You can call it rules, unconscious rules, habit, whatever you want to label it, excuse me. But we all have rules. So for instance, the mail rule would be, well, I go out and get the mail from the mailbox, and I look at it, and I see the bills from, Med Ed, the power station or whatever, and the credit card bills, and I don't like how I feel when I just see the logo on there, and so I just throw it in a pile, and I just pretend like it's not there. So that's your rule. That's what you do. I go out and get the mail, I look at it, I feel lousy, and I throw it on this pile. That's the system that you use, and that's actually the rule that you tell yourself. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at the mail. If I don't like how I feel about that mail, I'm going to put it here. That's the rule that you use. So now that you have this new system that you're going to commit to, you want to state that in a series of rules. So that might look like, for instance, let's use the mailbox. I'm going to go out and get the mail, and when I get the mail, I'm going to look at it. And when I see the logo of the credit card company, let's say in this instance, I, regardless of how I feel, or what I might feel a certain way, I'm going to push that feeling to the side, and instead I'm going to open it in a dispassionate way, and I'm going to look at it, and then I'm going to mark on the calendar, a particular day to pay that bill. Okay, that might be more than what you like to do, but I'm just using that as an example. That's a series of rules, a series of steps. Go out and get the mail, see the logo, feel momentarily ashamed, embarrassed, self-conscious, whatever. Push that feeling to the side. When I feel ashamed, I'm going to commit to myself to not allowing myself to feel that way. I'm going to push it to the side, and instead I'm going to open it up and I'm going to feel powerful, and I'm going to see the due date, and I'm going to write it on my calendar when I'm going to pay that. Okay. There's a whole series of rules, a series of steps that you're going to follow. That's your system. So that, when the mail comes, this is what I do. Now, this is not perfect. You could still, your inner teenager, as you always hear me talk about, your inner teenager could rise up and say, no, I don't want to. I want to feel self-conscious and I want to feel condemning of myself. So I'm just going to push it to the side. And then you're letting your feelings rule the whole situation. You don't really want to do that, right? You want to have your rules that are logical and rational so that you're in control of the situation instead of these situations and your feelings being in control of you. So go ahead and make a whole series of rules. So for your closet, so for me now, actually with my closet, this is a good example. I used to just take stuff that I would, if I went shopping, clothes shopping, I would take the stuff and either put it on a coat hanger, or I'd fold it, and then I would just figure out where it fits and just kind of jam it in. Now what I do is I look at it by color. Oh, this is a purple sweater, so this is going to go with all the purple stuff. Purple and blue. I have those all in one area. And that's just my rule. My rule is I look at the color of what I just bought and I put it with the other colors, other items of that same color in my closet. That's my rule. With groceries, when I pull out an item out of the bag. If it's a breakfast item, all the breakfast items go in one specific shelf in my kitchen. That's the rule. If it's cereal, then it goes on the third shelf. So, so you just have all these little rules for yourself, and that's your system. So you take your whole system that you thought about in step 3, and in step 4, you just make them into a series of rules or a series of steps or the series of the new habits, however you want to think about it, that you're going to follow. Okay. So hope that was helpful. This was a long one because it's a big deal. Being disorganized, it's a problem, like I said at the beginning, that we all deal with at a certain level. Some of us are more disorganized than others. It is a journey. Once you start trying to be more organized, you'll find that you're going to hit certain challenges. Certain things will work for you. Certain things won't work for you. When you start something and you realize it's not working, you haven't committed to that system, I want you to resist feeling like a failure. I want you to resist feeling embarrassed or don't feel ashamed, any of that stuff. I don't want you to feel those ways anymore, because when you feel those ways, you retreat from the situation, and that never makes the situation better. So instead, I want you to become like a scientist of your own life, of what's going on. You have a system, you were trying to implement this system, and you weren't able to do it. Why not? What happened? What about this system doesn't work for you? Figure out what doesn't work and then fix just that, because very likely some other part of that system was working for you. But if you just trash the whole thing, then you haven't made any progress whatsoever. I'll use my junk drawer as an example. I could look at that and say, gosh, every system that I've tried to use just hasn't worked because it still looks like a junk drawer. But that's not true. A lot of the changes that I've tried to make over the years really have worked. So it's been overall extremely successful, if not perfectly successful. So maybe it's 70% okay and not 100% okay. I'd still say that's a lot of progress over the years. And I'd take it any day over what my junk drawer used to look like 10 years ago. Okay. So I want you to just understand that you are a work in progress. Your level of organization is a work in progress. Don't ever feel condemned. Don't feel frustrated or embarrassed or ashamed at what you're not able to accomplish. Look at what is working dispassionately, and look at what is not working dispassionately, and just fix what doesn't work and keep what is working, and that's how you make progress. And eventually you'll get it under control. Give yourself time, give yourself space, and for Pete's sake, just divorce yourself from these negative emotions, because that's your biggest problem. Okay? All right. What are other questions, or does anyone have an example that they would love to share with everybody? We have a couple more minutes here, and then I have to get going because I have a client in about 45 minutes. So, but I really want to hear from someone. If you have a story to share about either something that you've conquered, or if you want some advice about something. If you're overwhelmed, how do you get started? All right. Whenever you're overwhelmed, the first thing to do is to, of course, take a deep breath, to stop feeling overwhelmed and to insist that you're going to feel in control. And then just pick one area. One area. Don't look at your whole life. Just pick one thing that you're going to work on to improve the organization. So, and I make it narrow. Okay, don't don't like say, I'm going to organize my whole kitchen, because that's too much. It might just be a matter of organizing your junk drawer. Just pick your junk drawer, or just your kitchen pantry, or where you keep your your Tupperware and your storage containers. That shelf. Pick one very specific, very discrete area and just start there. We tend to get overwhelmed when we look at things and how big something is, and then we shut down, because who wouldn't shut down, right? So don't do that. Just get very focused, very specific, very narrow, and pick one area and devote all your time and attention on that. And what happens is that will teach you a lot about yourself, about what systems tend to work, what systems tend to not work for you, so that then when you go to attack your second pantry cabinet or whatever, you know, oh gosh, this really worked well for me, and this other thing really didn't work so well for me in this other area of my kitchen, so I'm not going to do that again. Instead, I'm going to do this way. So it's really powerful to get really, really focused, to do one narrow thing, concentrate on that, and then that's going to teach you so much going forward. So then the next step that you take, of course, you're going to pick another area, second area of focus, very narrow focus, and you're going to learn so much about the first one. I hope that helps. What else? You are welcome. What else? No one have any questions? I can't be the only one who struggles with disorganization, me and Leah. You're welcome. Is that Vicki? Good to see you, Vicki. Good. I hope this was helpful. Does anyone have any more questions, or is there an aspect to organization that I didn't talk about? Good. I'm glad. I'm glad that you learned a lot, because this is not, about the nuts and bolts of how to organize your kitchen counters, your kitchen pantries. There are a lot of people who are really good at that, who know all kinds of different strategies and techniques. That's not me. I'm about the psychological underpinnings of what keeps us organized or keeps us disorganized, and how can we change? Because it really is a mindset. It really is a mindset. Relieving clutter, where to donate. Do I have a strategy for that? About where to donate, you mean, Leah? Yeah. Well, donations depend on what it is that you're getting rid of. Clothing. I Goodwill or the Junior League actually runs a thrift shop. You can donate things to the thrift shop, and then they can sell it, and it helps to fund the Junior League downtown in York, where I live. The general rule of thumb for organizing any space that an organizing expert would tell you is that you figure out a space. Let's say it's your kitchen pantry. You want to organize your kitchen pantries. What they would tell you is you pull everything out of it that's currently in there. So you take everything out, and then you divide it into 3 different piles. I don't know that you would do this with food necessarily, just as an FYI, but anyway, if you do your closet, let's say your closet, you pull everything out of your closet, and then you divide into 3 piles. One pile is the stuff that you've outgrown, you just don't like anymore. If you haven't worn it in a year or two, then that's what you donate. You're going to get rid of that. Or if it's in really rotten condition, like beyond repair, then you throw it out. Okay, so you're going to have one pile of stuff that you're going to donate, another pile of stuff that you would actually throw out. So in the case of a kitchen pantry, old food, expired cans, things like that you just have to throw away because there's nothing else that can be done with it. So that's the second pile that you throw away. And the third pile is the stuff that you're going to keep. Okay, so the very first thing is just to do a very kind of high level, do I keep this or not? And if I'm not going to keep it, do I throw it away or do I donate it? All right. So that's kind of how your first pass. Then you take a look at what you have left. Now, in the case of a closet, you want to put stuff back in a way that makes sense to you. So my sister-in-law mentioned to me about grouping things according to color, and that just made so much more sense for me. Okay, not for everybody, but for me. I thought, I'm going to try that, and that's worked for several years. I want to say like 5 or 6 years that I've done that. So I put everything back then according to color, all the like colors together. Some people do all the like items together, like all the pants, all the dresses, all the skirts, that sort of thing. So that's where I talk about in the third step is figuring out a system that's going to work for you, and then a series of rules then that you would tell yourself. So if I go shopping now with the closet, what you can do, a rule that you can say is if I go shopping for something and I bring something home, something new, I have to get rid of one thing before I hang that back up. So that might be a new rule that you have for yourself to try to keep clutter under control. With the kitchen pantry, your rule could be that you don't buy something at the grocery store unless you have a specific recipe that you're going to use that in, so that you don't just end up bringing stuff back for no discernible reason. So it just takes up space and creates more clutter in your kitchen. Okay. Does that help? Those are just some basic strategies. And like I said, I am not an organizing expert, so I don't know a lot of details and a lot of different strategies, but I know that's kind of the general rule of thumb. And you could consult with an organizing expert. They really are experts at knowing the different types of not only the strategies to use, how to organize, but also the different products that are available to help you keep yourself organized. Because of, there's so many, and so many are beautiful. They're beautiful, quite gorgeous actually, and which it always feels nice to look at something that's not only well organized, but actually looks really pretty too, because the container is pretty. So that's adds an element of fun to stuff. So, okay. All right. Please feel free to, if you have any questions about this or you want to share with me your story, you just don't want to do it publicly, but you'd just love to tell somebody about it, I'd love to hear it. Please feel free to email me at anita@thefreedomprescription.com, and I'll get back to you. If you have any suggestions for future shows, I'd love to hear about them. The next show I'm really excited about, because I'm going to tell you about the one big secret on how to live a high-impact lifestyle. Because I tell you what, we had a pretty significant accident that happened here in our hometown, and it killed, just last night, the father-in-law of a friend of mine. And, it reminded me yet again how important it is to do the things that are important and to not put it off anymore, and to stop doing things that aren't important. It's extremely important, actually. So coincidentally, on Monday, I have scheduled this show topic to be about how to live a high-impact lifestyle, so that you're making sure that you're doing the things that you're supposed to do and that are going to matter most to you and to the world around you, and to stop doing stuff that doesn't matter anymore, because it's a drain from you. You're actually not contributing at nearly as high of a level as you could be contributing, and that doesn't lift anyone up. It doesn't lift you up, and it doesn't lift your family up, and it doesn't lift the community up when you're allowing yourself to get occupied by stuff that just doesn't matter anymore. And I was reminded very starkly of that this morning when I woke up and heard this news. So I would strongly encourage you to come and watch the show on Monday, join in the conversation. Please feel free to join, have a seat next to me, and so you can talk to me. I'd love to talk to you directly and hear your story and hear how you're living in a high-impact life, or how you want to live it and you just don't know how to get there. I'm going to help you do that, okay? All right, so great to talk to you today. I'm glad this was helpful for many of you. If you have any more questions, comments, or want to share with me your story, please feel free to email me, and I will see you back here for the Dr. Anita Show on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 11 a.m. Pacific Time. And I don't even know what time it is in different places in Europe, but I know that some of you are watching in Europe, so that is very nice, warms my heart. I will look forward to talking to you on Monday. Bye, everybody.